Welcome to the Yoked Podcast, where we talk about all things entrepreneurship, real estate, and partnerships. I'm your host, Travis Hall, alongside my co-host and wife, Ingrid. Together, we've been in real estate for nearly 2 decades, always as an equally yoked husband and wife team.
Join us each week as we bring you a new episode. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, follow along, and welcome to this week's episode of
The Yoked Podcast. Welcome to the Yoked Podcast, everybody. This is where we talk about real estate, entrepreneurship, business, and all things partnership and what you are yoked to. I'm Travis Hall. This is my wife, Ingrid.
Hi.
We have been in real estate for 15 years, for the last 4. We have a real estate company in the Denver, Colorado area where we've done all kinds of things: long-term rental, short-term rental, fix and flip, help people buy and sell, lending, you name it, we've probably done it. And so today we are going to talk about one of the number one questions that we get asked in real estate, and that is all about long-term rentals and how we manage them. And so that's not my wheelhouse. I have Ingrid here with me. She's really more of the operations brain behind that. And so before we start, Ingrid, it is almost Christmas time. If you're listening or watching this later, it's almost Christmas time.
Yeah.
So to keep you on your toes, what'd you get me?
I got you the same thing you got me.
Which is?
Ski pass.
Passes. Otherwise, are you ready? Are you ready for Christmas?
We're so close.
We're close.
So close.
Perfect. Well, let's dive into some of these questions that we get asked a lot and more about the nuts and bolts of how this whole landlord self-managing thing works. All right. So the first question I have for you in our business is, how have you / we maintained a near zero vacancy when it comes to our properties for the last 5 years?
Ooh, good question. Yes, we do get asked this a lot. And so first, I want to talk about what vacancy rate is. And it's the percentage of unoccupied days, or if you're in a large complex, it would be the percentage of unoccupied units. A good vacancy rate, I think, nationwide would be like between 5 and 10%.
Yes, I agree.
On a long term. Midterm, probably a little bit higher. On a short term this year, we've come off a garbage year for short term rentals, is probably closer to about 50%. And so obviously lots of factors considered with short and midterm, but most of today's conversation is about long term.
Yeah, it's pretty different in how you evaluate the deal, and we do a lot of underwriting. And so for us, when we underwrite a long-term rental, we're running it at a 10% to be conservative, but knowing that we have generally been at zero.
I love being at zero. I feel like that's winning. But realistically, at least in the Denver market, a really good vacancy rate is 3% or under, which is about 11 days per year. Key factors to get to 3%, 100 is absolutely hands down the number one thing is selecting a quality tenant.
What do you mean by that? Why is that?
Because they will make or break all of your rentals. But truly, if you guys can collaborate and work ahead, you know exactly when they're moving out. And it takes about 2 days to get somebody in there to freshen up some paint because you know the place is in good shape. And then you have a cleaner come in and your new tenants are moving in. Then, you're at 2 days max, which that's basically zero.
True zero would be like, I move out and I pay for that day, and then the next person literally moves in the next day.
Yeah.
And so it's doable, but 2 days is practical.
But it takes collaboration, and it takes having a 60-day notice minimum written into your lease, I think is key. That way everybody knows 60 days ahead of time, are you moving out or are you staying renewing? Do we have a new signed lease? And then probably turning over in a very optimal time for your market. So here, spring, it's between March and June, but if you're going to be turning over 2 weeks before Christmas, your vacancy rate's probably going to be higher.
Yeah. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about that if the tenant breaks a lease early or something. But
for sure,
I will say that you have done a great job of, when we had those turnovers like that you kind of are creative in making the next lease be a 9-month lease, an 18-month lease, a 14-month lease, whatever you need to do to get it where it turns over in that kind of premium time frame, March to June.
Yeah. Be creative. There are no rules. You have to sign a 12-month lease, a 6-month lease. I mean, I think it's nice and it's in general what's followed, but there are no rules for that. So try to get your tenants turning over all of your properties, turning over in that optimal lease point for your market. Your vacancy rate will go down and you'll get higher net on your leases.
Okay, cool. I mean, we could elaborate a lot on that.
I love
going. And so we talked a little about leases. And so I know when we first started, it's like, okay, we're going to have a rental. We need a lease. What do we do? Just Google lease.
that's
So
what
we did. And so, but knowing what we know now, do you write your own leases? Do you pay somebody to write your lease? What do you do with the lease?
we have since graduated from writing napkin leases. So when we first started out, probably the first 8 years, we definitely wrote our own leases. For the last 8 years, we've had all of our leases professionally drafted. Now, that could be anything from something like a Bigger Pockets template. I know Zillow now does leases. I think those are great options for ours. We think, I don't know if you knew this, we're using an attorney drafted lease. But part of that too is because we're brokers, we're held to a different standard. If you are a broker listening to this podcast, you absolutely should be doing whatever is required by your brokerage or by the governing body of your license. But one of the really nice things about having an attorney draft your lease is that it usually comes in a pack. And so you're getting stuff like move in, move out, and everything like that. The other thing I will say is like this last year, we had a ton of changes for our leases. And Zillow was about statewide. So things like being required to include or allow a tenant to install an EV charging station. You're now required in the state of Colorado as a landlord. You have to allow them to install one on your property. You don't have to pay for it, but you do have to allow it. And so one of the words of caution I would say with some of the bigger companies I've noticed is that those changes don't get updated for a while. So yeah, take it upon yourself to educate yourself, do your due diligence, but understand the source that you're getting it from.
Okay. So in other words, write your own lease is what you call it. All right. Next question. Do you use a rental management platform or software?
100% yes.
Absolutely.
We've also graduated even with one, because here's the great thing. When you have one property, they're almost all free.
It's true.
So like, why wouldn't you use the one? Plenty of free ones. We use a couple of different. I really love Zillow for being able to lease out we're getting the most eyes on it, I should say, when it comes to posting it online and making sure that your rental is getting seen. But even in terms of actual platforms that collect rent and do stuff like that, they're great options. We use one that does all of that for you. You can have documents through it. If you have a lot of rental properties, you're going to want something that tracks work orders. You're going to want a paper trail for everything. But it also will take out some of the liability when it comes to leasing. So making sure that you're compliant with stuff like, is my pet, allowed to be a emotional support animal? Well, there's a bunch of platforms that they just run them through that for you. Background checks, credit screens. You want to make sure that that's all taken care of. And there's tons of systems. A lot of them are free that'll do that for you.
Absolutely. I mean, they're all equally important in their own way.
Yes.
And so you touched on a couple things like the emotional support animal, like little things like that. Like, give us some real life hacks that you've learned and that we've implemented in our business that if you were talking to yourself 10 years ago that you're like, hey, do this, trust me.
I would say, Ingrid, take over all the leasing early on. Don't try to do it together, only because you each are going to have a process for something.
Right.
And so for us, like one of my number one hacks, if you're just getting started, and even if you haven't done it, start doing it now, is record your process. Property management is a total rinse and repeat. You do the same thing every time you turn it over. You get cleaners, you have people go in and do handyman work. You will know after you've done it 3 times what worked and what didn't. And there's just no reason to be duplicating that if you don't have to do. So absolutely, when you're talking about something you only do once a year, have a process and write it down.
Okay. What else?
I love having our tenants show our property.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are at that 60-day mark and the tenant says, hey, we're, moving back to Kansas. Okay, perfect. Would you mind showing the property for me? And so you can only do this if you have a good relationship with your tenant, which is one of the key, most important things in property management. Yeah. And if you're going to scale, this is a great way to do it. So anybody who's been showing their own property for releases, I highly recommend seeing if you can get your tenant to do it a few times. We toss them a couple $100. They're willing to do that. They also can ask all the questions, the prospective tenant of the current one about you. You want to make sure that they feel comfortable leasing. And are we going to come change light bulbs? No, we're not going to come change light bulbs. So stuff like that. And then second, you're reducing your costs. If you're not able to have your tenant show your property for releases, I recommend doing an open house. So that, there's so many times, we ran all the way 40 minutes away to show a property. You've told your current tenant, they leave, then you don't show up. Everyone's mad.
Yep.
Don't do that. Spare yourself. Do an open house style showing window. And so you can put it right in your listing. We're going to have open houses. You have a QR code. They scan it while they're there, fill out the application. It's super easy. And you do get a chance to meet the tenant then if that's important to you.
I agree. Okay. So again, we're talking to ourselves 10 years ago. We're just starting out. Well, if somebody here is listening and they're like, they want to venture in the real estate game. They have a house already. They're like, man, let's turn this one into a rental. They want to get flat rental, whatever it is. What advice would you give them?
I would say do it yourself. There is nothing written in a property management book that will replace the experience that you get when you actually do it. And so if you are just starting, you're getting ready to do your very first rental, my advice would be to not look at a property management company. It would be to do it self-managed. That way, when you are ready to hire a property management company, either you've been doing it a certain amount of years or you have a certain amount of properties and you're ready to scale, then you have the experience and you know exactly how you want it done. But without some of that, you would have no idea. And when you fail, treat it like a masterclass. You just paid a lot of money to fail. And so you know exactly how to tell that future person how to do it.
It's a good teaser for our next episode.
Oh, well, there you go. See?
We're about fail.
Like we're yoked.
It's like we're yoked. Speaking of yoked, what or who would you want to be yoked to in property management specifically?
So there's
elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. I think the idea of yoked, obviously with the podcast, is that you can do more and go further together when you are yoked to something. So if you're tired of doing it by yourself, reframe it and think like, who can help me go further or what can help me go further if we're working together. And so there's about a million things I would say that you could be yoked to in property management, but truly the most important thing is your tenant. You need to be yoked to your tenant. So the success of the management process, the performance of the property, they all boil down to having a really good tenant. And that starts from a mutual respect and kindness, but also just initial screening processes, making sure you're doing your due diligence and being attentive, being communicative, slipping them a Starbucks card at Christmas. Those things go a long way. And truly they will, being yoked to them will definitely help your property management.
And you do get to provide someone quality house or a place to live. And so that's important.
Absolutely.
To, take care of it, be quality.
Yeah.
And you really are doing a good service by doing that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the same person, if they wanted to dive in and find additional resources, learning a little bit before they actually take action, what would you point them for resources?
There are tons of great books. I know Brandon Turner has one. I think it's called Managing Rental Properties.
Yep,
very
pretty
applicable. Yeah.
Very good.
Zillow Rental Manager is a great resource. They really have that step-by-step, guide you through the process. Apartments.com. But if you want to take it up a notch, I would say go attend a CE course. These are available in all major markets. They are qualified by educators that have to do the class X amount of times. and they're going to have the most updated information. I mean, you pay $35-$40. Trust me, well worth it. If you want that knowledge and you're looking to level up, then I would say attend a CE. And of course, take somebody you know to coffee who's doing it. If you're in Denver, take us to coffee.
I love coffee.
I know you really love coffee, but truly, like,
white, and I'm happy to do. I'll talk about whatever.
Yeah, even if you don't have a flat white. But people that have gone before you, leverage them, use them. They're there, and do more together.
Perfect. Well, that is it for today. Talking about property management. Ingrid, for all those people that want to connect with you, where do they find you at, and how do they connect with you?
On social media, Ingrid S. Hall. I'm like, what's my handle? Ingrid S. Hall on Instagram. Yeah, mostly Instagram. And I am a total texter. So if you really want to respond, I will text you.
Yeah, DM you. And I am at the Travis Hall on all of the socials. Like, click, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.